going to look at 5 topics that are exercising our minds in war risks at the moment. I'll only be able to touch the surface a minute or two on each. First of all, then, sanctions. From a war risk perspective, that's really Venezuela and Iran. They're both additional premium areas. For Venezuela, there is a premium payable, but for Iran, then it's declarable, but there's no AP. You need to exercise extreme caution, but it is possible to do legal trade still with Venezuela and Iran, but there needs to be no US nexus, and the cargo and the parties that you're dealing with shouldn't be sanctioned. I can't stress enough the need for owners to do proper due diligence before the voyage or before the fixture. And if you're wondering what proper due diligence looks like, then OFAC has recently provided some guidance, something called a Sanctions Compliance Program. You can find further details on the website on my slide there. But essentially, there are 5 main elements to a sanctions compliance program. Management commitment, so a top-down approach. They're expecting senior management to have reviewed and approved the sanctions compliance program. Promotion of a culture of compliance and ensuring adequate staffing as well. The second area is risk assessment, ongoing, to identify potential issues. Having internal controls, that's all about written policies and procedures and record keeping and communicating. Testing and auditing to ensure the effectiveness of the program. And finally, training, annual training of the relevant personnel. It's not actually a requirement to have a sanctions compliance program, but OFAC have said that they will look favourably if you have a sanctions compliance program and you do fall foul of sanctions. They've also helpfully identified some weaknesses that they've found in the past, things such as not understanding the regulations or not doing proper due diligence. The final point I would make on sanctions is don't rely on somebody else's due diligence. No matter how blue chip they are, do your own. Moving on, the Arabian Gulf. A war risk talk wouldn't be complete without mentioning the Arabian Gulf at the moment. Obviously, it's been very well publicized. We had the attacks off Fujairah in the middle of May. We had the 2 ships attacked in the Gulf of Oman in the middle of June. And then the seizure of the Stena Impero, amongst other incidents. The Stena ship obviously recently been released. War risk underwriters responded by creating new additional premium areas, Oman, the UAE, the Arabian Gulf, and then differentiating between Saudi Red Sea coast and Saudi Arabian Gulf coast. Different risks to the Indian Ocean, and therefore, as you might expect, some protective measures are different as well. And I've identified some of them there. They're not mine. I've taken them from Intertanko and from OCIMF. But some of the measures are relevant everywhere, things such as vigilance and ship and voyage-specific risk assessments. Next, the Gulf of Guinea. This is the IMB map showing the incidents in the first 6 months of 2019. Pirates still very active in the Gulf of Guinea. The orange pins are showing ships which have been boarded. The red pins show ships which have been hijacked. 33 attacks in the Gulf of Guinea in the first 6 months of this year. Note that cluster, which we see every year off the Niger Delta. Of those 33 incidents, then 21 of the incidents were off Nigeria, including 14 kidnapping incidents. When it comes to trends in the Gulf of Guinea, I'm identifying three here. The first is that the pirates are going further afield. They're finding it more difficult to kidnap crew off Nigeria, and therefore we're finding incidents off Benin and particularly recently off Douala. A number of ships have been boarded at the anchorage at Douala. To be fair, the authorities in Douala have done something about it, and they're now putting Marines on board at the Sea Boy, and they're on board whilst the ship is at anchor, and they leave once the ship berths. So, the pirates going further afield. The other trend, or continuing trend, is more crew being kidnapped. In the old days, used to be 2, 3, maximum 4. Now we're seeing even 10 or sometimes even 12 crew being kidnapped. In 2 incidents off Douala, 17 crew were kidnapped. Third aspect is the increased activity that we tend to see at the back end of the year and into January when the rainy season ends in the Gulf of Guinea. You need to take care in Pirate Alley. Protective measures. I make no apology for the fact that I've touched upon these in previous seminars. You must adhere to BMP 5 and the Gulf of Guinea guidelines. Vigilance and ship and voyage specific risk assessments, reporting and information sharing, citadels. At the Hellenic, the members have experienced a number of occasions where citadels have been very successful. The crew have made it to the citadel, and there's been theft and there's been damage, but no crew have been taken. And pirates in the Gulf of Guinea don't seem to spend time trying to get into the citadel. The final bullet point there is one about keeping the ship's itinerary as safe and secure as you can. Cyber, then, I've just taken these headlines from the last few weeks. This is a US MARAD advisory. Vessels operating in the Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, and Gulf of Oman may also encounter GPS interference, bridge-to-bridge communication spoofing, and/or other communications jamming with little or no warning. This is a headline I took from Tradewinds. Was the Stena Impero spoofed off course by fake GPS signals? I don't know the answer to that. This is a comment from the Royal Navy's Fleet Commander. We're seeing more state and non-state actors getting involved in things like GPS denial. What else has been in the news? Then an attack by the US on the Islamic Revolutionary Guard core databases. In turn, allegations that Iran is pursuing cyber operations against the US. The Norwegian National Security Authority advised of increased cyber campaigns. When it comes to countermeasures, then IT measures are really beyond my expertise, but take note of expert published guidance, crew training so that the crew can be human firewalls. The most common problem is still crew inadvertently introducing viruses on board. And the last bullet point there is about insurance cover. It is part of the solution, knowing what's covered, what's excluded. The London market typically uses the clause CL380 to exclude cyber and computer virus risks. Finally, the Western Indian Ocean. Like other underwriters at the Hellenic, we reduced the payable AP area in the Indian Ocean a little bit earlier this year. So the yellow area that you're seeing on the chart there, that's bounded by 12 degrees south, 65 degrees east, the yellow area, it's declarable, but there's no additional premium payable. You only pay the premium if you go into the green area. What's it like on the ground in the Western Indian Ocean? Then Somalia, still unstable. Yemen, still widespread fighting despite the ceasefire. However, no reports of piracy incidents recently, and no conflict-related incidents against shipping recently either. But we do hear reports, lots of reports of approaches by skiffs. The use of onboard security is dropping. There's a realistic possibility that piracy activity could resume around about now when the southwest monsoon ends. And there's still a threat to shipping as a result of the conflict in Yemen. But it's not just about those main headline areas that I've touched upon. You need to be vigilant everywhere. Last week, I saw a report about a ship that had been boarded by armed robbers as she was going into Guayaquil in Ecuador. It was the 4th such incident in about 12 months. So don't be the one that gets caught out. Vigilance everywhere, please. Thank you.